Hey, what's up, Exit the Matrix family? Bob here. Hey guys, I hope you're having a great day. Thank you for joining me on this morning talk. Hey guys, today I just wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess, who are the Elohim? Who are the Anuna? And for those of you that don't know, the Anuna was the original Sumerian name for what later would get popularized by Zecharia Sitchin and kind of pop culture as the Anunnaki. Now, the Anunnaki is the same name. It's just, keys added onto the end, but essentially Anunnaki came from the later Babylonian name for the same entities or characters or gods, whatever you want to call them. And just off the bat, like anybody that's still getting psyoped by the mainstream misinformation agenda, Zecharia Sitchin did not make up the name Anunnaki, okay? Go read the Atrahasis. And there's other tablets too. Plenty of other tablets. The Enuma Elish. And it clearly states the Anunnaki. In fact, the Atrahasis names them the Anuna and the Anunnaki, which I found interesting. Because, like I said, Sumerian was where the Anuna term came from, but much later, thousands of years later, was where the Babylonian term Anunnaki came from. So that tells me that the Atrahasis, at least the version we have now, is an amalgamation of much older versions and newer versions of the same story. It's kind of like how, and even though a lot of Christians deny this, the Bible's been written and remixed many times, and you have all these denominations that add and change and, take away from, the Bible, right? They've got their own little variations. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of different translations, and every time you change a word, you can change the inflection and meaning of it. And you see this oftentimes. But, so just understand that, okay? That's a real term. It doesn't matter if you call them the Anuna or the Anunnaki. And it can have they can have multiple meanings. It can mean from heaven to earth. Anu is their God, was their most high, right? El Elyon in the Bible, the most high was Anu, the God of heaven, and his consort, his wife, was Ki. Ki means earth. You can kind of see the simple translation in that, right? From heaven to earth they came. And it can also mean princely seed. And this is quite simple too, folks, because this is explained in the cuneiform. The working class Anunnaki are called the Igigi. And the royals are the Anuna, the Anunnaki. So you can see, like, their whole race wasn't called the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, or the Anuna, were their royal blood, were their royal class, okay? Their working class, their soldier class, were the Igigi. Which I want to make a point, though. It is quite clear in many of the cuneiform tablets that the Igigi are also gods. And this is simple, folks. It's because our ancient ancestors, the Sumerians, they understood clearly that we are all gods. Okay? They understood that the Igigi were the gods too. It even says in the Atrahasis, they created mankind to alleviate the work of the gods of the Agigi. They didn't just say, oh, the Anuna are the gods. No, they said the Agigi, and that was their working class. And it even alludes to the fact that humans are immortals also. That was what the whole tantrum thrown by Yahweh in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve was about, with the serpent, teaching them the higher knowledge. The serpent it's simple, folks. The serpent made Adam and Eve self-aware that they are immortal spirits that are visiting earth in that human body. And once they understood that, they realized they were as like one of the gods. Okay? And this infuriated Enlil in the Atrahasis, who is Yahweh in the Bible. Okay? In the garden. And Enki is the serpent. Same story, folks. Except the Bible's missing context. And why would that be? Well, it's because one tribe of people took all these ancient stories and remixed themselves as the hero. And they made Enlil their chief god. In fact, the earlier Judean temples, actually, they worshipped Asherah, also Yahweh's consort, his wife. And then later on, they made it a patriarchal religion, and they kicked Asherah out of the temples. And then later on, Christianity picked Asherah back up and hid her under this name, the Comforter, the Holy Spirit. You know, the mother, right? Look, guys, I'm sorry. I mean, there's some men that are, maybe a little more emotional and, a little more in tune with their feminine side, because we are all dual entities, folks. We all have feminine and masculine in us. However, men typically are overwhelmingly, mostly masculine. Well, that's changing nowadays. We know that, right? Because of all the chemicals and everything they're poisoning us with. They're turning men into girly men nowadays. But in ancient times, men were way more masculine. And, men aren't typically mother-like, okay? Let's be real, folks. But yet, Christianity and Judaism tries to teach you that God's only a male and that there is no female goddess or aspect of God that's feminine, right? It's all male. Male, 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 male. Boys, male. And that's just because they're ignorant. And it's honestly a joke, folks, at this point. Like, look, even if you are a Christian, understand the reason why the Catholics worship the Mother Mary so much is because the Mother Mary is a stand-in for Asherah, for the Comforter, for the Mother. That's who the Holy Spirit is. And yes, you could say it's an aspect of God, of course, because God is not a male, folks. I'm not talking about these characters setting themselves up as gods. I'm talking about the true source of all creation is the divine and the masculine and divine feminine incarnate. Okay, it's the completion. It's the totality. You have to have both energies to create. It's just so simple. I mean, wake up. It's time to smell the coffee, man. And it's time to set aside the bullshit and start learning on a deeper level. Start learning symbols. Start learning the occult. The occult doesn't mean evil, folks. They told you not to study the occultic teachings like Hermeticism and stuff because they said it's evil, it's witchcraft. No, occult means hidden knowledge. In fact, Yeshua and his group that he traveled with, they were Essenes. They were mystics. They were a mystic order. And oftentimes they would make pilgrimages to Egypt to learn the mystery school teachings, folks. What were those mystery school teachings? It was Hermeticism. Literally, our ancients teaching us how to interface with the quantum field. The truth of the construct of this reality. Yeshua understood this, folks, and he was a master at interfacing with the quantum field. That's why he could heal. He could do all these things that most humans couldn't do. There's yogis that have tapped into these abilities also. Look, folks, you've all been tricked, man. They replaced the real Yeshua with this cardboard character, Jesus Christ, that you all worship and believe in. The construct of Rome. It's a joke. It's actually really sad what they've done to Yeshua and his real teachings. Well, the interesting thing is many people meet Yeshua in their NDEs. And every time he tells them there's no religion, it's all man-made for earth. He doesn't say, oh yeah, the Bible's the absolute truth. You better go to church. Punch that ticket to get into heaven. He never says that. In fact, Yeshua's quite a comedian, man, from what people talk about. Actually, humor is a very high level of vibration. Laughing is probably one of the highest vibrations, if not the highest vibration on earth. I know they say love, right? And love is, but true mirth, true laughter, good-natured laughter is a form of love, folks. Okay? It's because it's the defeat of fear. Laughter sets fear aside. It defeats fear, for the moment at least. And there's much humor. Everybody says when they meet people on the other side, family members, guides, angels, Yeshua, whatever, they're all humorous. They all make jokes. They all they laugh. They like to be lighthearted. Okay? But anyways, folks, getting back, the Elohim. Folks, the Elohim is not God the Trinity, okay? Like your Pastor Dan tells you. The Elohim is plural, the gods. That's why it says, come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Folks, it was never in God's image. Folks, the Creator is not a man. I don't know what else to tell you. The Creator, God, is not a man. He's not in the form of a man. Now, the Creator God is the all, so it takes the form of man. It's in the form of man. It's in all. If there are aliens out there, that's source energy. That's God. Okay? And people are still arguing this point. I was created in the image of God. No, you were created in the image of the Elohim, the Anuna, the Anunnaki. Whether you want to like that or not, or believe it or not, that is what the Bible even says, folks. That is what the Atrahasis in Genesis, the Enuma Elish, Epic of Gilgamesh, they all teach the same story. It's just, those of you that haven't read the cuneiform and cross-referenced it to Genesis, to the Torah, you don't understand anything. And that's okay. You just haven't given the effort, and I guess you don't care about the truth. Because how many times do I get attacked by Christians saying, you're a liar, you're spreading misinformation, the truth is the Bible, the Bible's the ultimate truth. Okay then, the Bible just told you in Genesis, come, let us make man in our image after our likeness. The Elohim, the gods, Elohim is gods, plural. They're telling you in the Bible too, folks. They didn't say man was made in God, the Creator's image, it was made in the Elohim's image. The Anuna's image. The bipedal humanoid form was fashioned. Well, let's put it this way. According to people, NDEs and other sources, the humanoid bipedal structure is a symbiotic, or I don't know if that's the right word to use. Let's just say it's a typical platform for avatars throughout the universe. Whatever planet you're on. Now, I'm not saying there's not some alien species out there that aren't bipedal and such. Maybe there, but typically every like avatar created for higher spirits to inhabit, to immerse themselves into a world, is through a bipedal avatar. Well, the Anunnaki, obviously we have thousands of carvings of them and depictions of them in cylinder seals, in ancient structures. And what do you know? They got 2 legs, 2 arms, a head, in an upright fashion walking, okay? Yes, some of them are depicted with wings. And that is more than likely because they were represented as having the ability to fly. You know, like ships, right? Spaceships. Remember that song Styx? Come Sail Away, right? Dude, that song is insane. If you really listen to the lyrics of that song and immerse yourself into that song's telling you something, dude. It really is, right? Remember at the beginning of that song, how first he's going on a sailing trip, you know, to kind of get away from everything. Leave the world behind, right? And then all of a sudden there's these flying beings, these light beings all around him in his ship out on the ocean or whatever, he's on the sea. And he's thinking they're angels, you know, and if you listen to the song, it's like, oh, you know, these angels are coming, you know, came and they told me to come sail away with them and go on a trip with them, right? And then all of a sudden, it turns into, towards the end of the song, it's like, actually, they're aliens in spaceships. And they tell them to come sail away with them into the stars, right? It's an folks, obviously, whoever wrote that song, that, you know, the Styx saying, they understood some deeper meanings here. But y'all look at these depictions of the Anunnaki with wings, right? And what, of course, right? Same thing in the Bible, the angels with wings, Gabriel and Michael and such, right? The archangel. Look, of course, the archangels. The archangels were the sons of God, right? It even tells you, folks. Look, the Bible is actually telling you a lot of truth. You guys just don't understand it. It even says, and they're the sons of God. That the angels were the sons of God and that mankind was like a separate construct. Well, duh. Because, yes, the sons of God are the sons of Anu, the Anunnaki, the Anuna, okay? And they had the ability to fly. That's why they're represented with wings. Same beings, folks, same story, okay? And of course, man was created separately from them. It even tells you in the Bible. Right, it even tells you in the Bible, what was Adam and Eve created to do? To tend the garden. Folks, what does that make you if you are a gardener? Okay? Working for somebody? That makes you, nicely we could say that makes you a servant or a worker. According to Atra Hasis, it's a slave. Okay? And why did Yahweh get so furious? Because the serpent made Adam and Eve self-aware of what they really are, that they're not just these dumb worker beings, simple worker slaves. And that infuriated Enlil, Yahweh. Because he wanted to keep them simple, stupid worker slaves. Because, folks, they lied. They enticed spirits from the higher dimensions into these avatars they fashioned from the hominids that were walking on the earth at the time. They upgraded them. They added their essence, their DNA to them. Okay? The black-headed people, the ones in the Atra Hasis, it talks about how they were wild like animals. They were living in the savannas and stuff with the animals. They were drinking alongside the animals in the wild. They were primitive man or primitive humanoids. Now, were those experiments going back hundreds of thousands of years? Possibly, yeah. I mean, but to upgrade this Homo sapien to be intelligent enough to take orders and to do the bidding of these Anunnaki, these Elohim, they upgraded their DNA. They gave them some of their essence. And they, in fact, to even test out the first Adamu, the first Adam prototype, they had to sacrifice one of the gods, one of the Anunnaki. It even says this. Now, folks, understand, they were killing the Anunnaki body, but they're like us. They're spirit. I mean, they're just spirits inhabiting the Anunnaki is just a prototype humanoid form. Just like the Homo sapien body is. And when they sacrificed that god, that Anunnaki, it gave life to the Adamu. Yes, because they knew they had the ability to move his spirit from the Anunnaki body into the human body. Okay? Folks, it's all there. It's all telling you our story. I mean, I guess if anything, this talk's kind of turned more into a talk on Genesis, right? And I know some of you are going to say, look, you talk about this stuff all the time. Well, of course I do, folks, because this is one of the most important stories that we could ever know as a species. Everybody wants to know where we came from and why we're here. Well, some would say that that the cuneiform is the truth, and some others would say the Bible's the truth. But I tell you, the same story is in both Genesis and various cuneiform tablets. You go read Enki and Ninmah. It's a laboratory setting, and Enki and his half-sister Ninmah. Think about Ninmah, Mama. She's also called Mammy. Think about it, folks. Where do you think you get the word mother from, okay? Because she carried Adam and Eve in her own womb. She's a womb goddess. She's Hathor of Egypt, okay? If anything, in a way, to humankind, she is probably more the Holy Spirit than Ki is, than Anu's wife. If anything, Hathor, the womb goddess, is Ninmah, also called Ninhursag. Also, she's got a few different names. Mammy, I mean, mother, Mammy. I mean, you've all heard that across the world. The name for mothers are Mama, Ninmah, Mama, right? Folks, it's all encoded in the language, okay? She carried that prototype Adam in her own womb. And that Adam was that was empowered by the spirit of the sacrificed Anunnaki. So, some things to think about, right? Interesting stuff. I think a lot of this stuff goes over people's heads because, they don't really actually study the Bible. They just basically go to church. They're given a verse or two. Usually it's Paul's teaching too, right? Not Yeshua's teachings. It's always Paul's teaching. It's funny how religion has a way of it's like everything's built on Yeshua's, right? On his teachings and his miracles. But yet, when you go to church, it's always like the teachings of Paul or, the other apostles that you're usually getting taught in church, right? And they hardly ever delve into the Old Testament, man. Oh, yeah, Psalms. Oh, yeah. They, Psalms and stuff they do, but they don't go into Genesis. They don't go into these stories because they don't really want people looking into this stuff, because once you do, you realize, you start seeing this stuff. And they tell you that the cuneiform's demonic. I can't tell you how many Christians, including my own family members, have tried to tell me that Satan wrote the cuneiform tablets to trick Christians in the future into false worship and all this stuff. Really? Wow, Satan was a busy guy, man. So you mean to tell me that Satan wrote hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of cuneiform tablets? Because who knows, folks, how many are lost to the sands of time. How many were destroyed in all the wars in the last 6,000 years? How many are buried under the deserts? Libraries never uncovered still to this day. I mean, just the ones we have, it's hundreds of thousands of them. Man, Satan was one hell of a guy, dude. I mean, this dude, he lives in every Christian's head, right? Satan. I mean, they don't understand that Satan is an allegory for our dark side we all have. Because we are in a world of dualism. We all have a shadow side and a light side. We all have the higher dimensional self, the spirit, which comes from a higher dimension. And that is what comes into the human avatar to immerse itself into this realm. Okay? To interact with this realm directly, you have to have this body, this avatar. The spirit, it's the higher self. It's the light. It comes from the light, from the source, from God. Okay? And when it enters into the body was created in the third dimension, the lower self. This is the shadow of heaven, folks. Earth. It's the shadow of heaven. They say everything that is in heaven, many of the things here on earth are just shadows of what is in heaven. The technologies, the constructs, the designs, right? Well, when you take on the human body, it's the lower dimensional self. It's the beast body, the 666. 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons. And you're forever in strife, at odds, at war with your higher self, with the lower self, with the carnal, the beast, the animal self, right? That is the war between God and the devil. Okay, folks? Think about it. God, source energy, the light, your higher self, and the lower self, the devil, the ruler of this world, of the carnal world, third dimensional world, right? God of this world. That's your lower self. That's your shadow self. Okay? You know, the devil, an angel on each shoulder. Folks, that's not an allegory for powers outside of you. That's an allegory for the powers inside of you. We all have these struggles and battles. That's why when you leave the human body, you have to go through a 3-day cleansing process to shed the negative. And then you go through the life reading to see how that battle played out, how you handled things. Did love win, or did you let the carnal, the animalistic self win when you were here? You know, and look, it's not right or wrong, evil or bad. It's more in the gray. It's somewhere in between. Is how we all live our lives on this earth, okay? Everybody battles with some kind of addiction. Everybody battles with hurting others. Everybody battles with helping others. Because we tend to be selfish. Because the animal carnal self is selfish. It cares about its survival. Look, folks, the human construct wants to survive. The spirit isn't really worried about the survival of the body because it understands it's immortal. But when you're in the body, you forget that you're immortal. So you become attached to the thinking of the mortal body. Okay? It's interesting to note, folks, when people, I've never once heard anybody say otherwise. This is very typical. When people pop out of their bodies and they look down and see their body, they always say there's no attachment. They're always like, oh, is that me? That's my body? Oh, well, whatever. And then they just, they either watch the doctors working on their body or they decide to leave the area and go explore. And they always say, it's weird. I had no attachment to the body. Actually, I do take it back, folks. I do remember one lady one time was explaining how sad she felt for the body. Because she said she never really took care of her body. And when she was looking at her poor body laying there, on the stretcher or whatever, she said she felt sympathy and empathy for the body because she had not treated it right and taken care of it like she should have. Okay, so I do take that back, folks. I said never. Okay. I remember that just came into my head, right? Obviously, my spirit's like, no, be honest. I mean, well, don't be honest, but tell the truth, You forgot about this. This is a point you need to make. So, okay. I corrected myself, folks. Okay. So, if any of you jump my case about that, okay. But let's just say most people that pop out of their body say they have no attachment to the body, that it's just oh, well, this is it. I guess I really am a spirit, right? And that was just my body. It was like a pair of clothing I just took off and left on the floor by my bed, right? So, oh man, I'm at work, folks. I got to get rolling here, but I'd like to keep going with this. I think we'll pick this one up tomorrow and I know I've done a lot on this, but I got to keep hammering it home, folks. Look, you got to learn these simple truths. And I keep telling everybody, if you don't believe me, fine, then go read the Atra Hasis yourself. And then after you do that, go read Genesis. And when you read them one after another, you're going to understand. Now, obviously, some of that depends on the translation, right? Because you have different versions that change terms and this and that. But essentially, I'd maybe just go to the King James Version. I don't know. And I know it was Sir Francis Bacon, a Mason, wrote the King James. We all know that, okay? Whatever. But it's typically the main version of the Bible most people study. Go read the King James Version of Genesis after you read the Atra Hasis. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's the same story, but with more context coming from the Atra Hasis. And with my explanation, you're going to understand. It'll enlighten you. You'll be like, oh, how did I not see this? Like, I've read Genesis 100 times in my life, and I never understood. But yeah, because they were teaching you Elohim was God. It was not. It was the gods. It even talks about the council of elders in Genesis, the council of the gods. Just like, what do you think the council of the Anuna is, okay? Anyways, guys, hey, simple stuff, folks, really. It really is actually simple. And it took me a while to figure all this out. But see, when I never had read the cuneiform, I didn't make these connections. But once you read the cuneiform and then read Genesis, it all starts to make sense. And then you realize how much they're lying to you guys. When they keep telling you, oh, we're all made in the image of God. They're trying to bring on the beast system. They're trying to put, transhumanism, all that. Yes, because they want to control the human avatars, folks. Look, the Anuna are still in power behind the scenes. And just like they did in Atra Hasis, they try to control our populations. They try to control humanity. And they're losing control. And every time they lose control, they bring wars and pestilences. And they spray the skies. Just saying. And now they figure, well, if we merge these humanoid, these avatar bodies with technology, maybe we can override the spirit and control them. Because the Anuna, the ones that have stayed in power here, they don't want to go home to the light, to the source. They've been in duality for so long, they got lost in the game and they became a part of the game, an evil part of the game. And they don't want to give up this world. They've made themselves gods in this world. Okay? Just understand that, folks. But here's the thing. They fear us, folks. Not because God and the angels are going to come down and slap them down. No. They fear the day the Christ returns. Right? Now, if I told a Christian this, he'd be like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Christ and the angels are going to come back on white horses from heaven and wipe out Satan and his minions and armies, right? And Armageddon. No, folks, it's talking about the return of the Christ consciousness. See, Yeshua was an embodiment of the Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness goes back way further than Yeshua. It goes all the way back to the orders of Melchizedek, to the mystery school teachings, to the Far East teachings that you find even parts of in Buddhism and Hinduism. In Zoroastrianism and such. I mean, look, there's parts of truth in all of these religions, folks. But that's the Christ returning. That means humanity awakens to the fact that they're immortal spirits playing a game in a human avatar form. What do all these New Agers talk about, right? They all talk about this. This grand awakening that we're all going to wake up, right? And, understand, that we're spirits and all this stuff. I mean, the New Agers have some truth in them too, folks, okay? It's because a lot of the New Age teachings, they spin off of these ancient religions and teachings. So they're, there's truth in their teachings too. Blavatsky and, what's his name? It's just right on the top of my head. What was that guy that wrote he introduced a lot of the occultic teachings to the world. Steiner? Yeah, Steiner. Which he went pretty deep on the Gnostic stuff with Ahriman, and all that. Which that all goes back to Zoroastrianism. The Zoroaster, and Ahriman was like the demonic force, right? Zoroaster is supposed to represent the fire, the light, right? So Steiner, taught a lot of that stuff too. Rudolf Steiner. See, these, and say what you will about Blavatsky and about Manly P. Hall and Steiner, but they were teaching us ancient knowledge, and you didn't want to hear. They were trying to teach you symbolism, okay? And you guys all are told they're demonic, witches and stuff. Now, I'm not saying everything in the New Age movement's legit. Obviously, it's not. But anyways, guys, we'll have to pick this one up. But, I mean, hey, I'd like to hear your guys' comments. What do you think about all this? Have you done the research yourself? And if you are a Christian and you've taken up my challenge, have you read the Atra Hasis and maybe thrown the Enuma Elish and the Epic of Gilgamesh so you have the totality of that? And I would even say Enki and Ninmah, Inanna's descent into the underworld. There's many others that add context to the whole story. But let's just say just the Atra Hasis and Genesis alone. Have you read both of them, one after the other? And what have you found? What resonates with you? Is what I'm telling you sound like it's demonic or lies? Or is it resonating like, yeah, this actually all makes sense? So anyways, guys, hey, I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And I'll talk to you later.